a bill that could have far-reaching implications for the general election and set up a process even that could bar former President Donald Trump from the ballot in Hawaii. With me now is State Senator Karl Rhoads, who introduced the bill to some controversy. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Does it surprise you that the word controversy is used to describe this bill by the media?
Well, a little bit. I mean, if it's controversial to follow the Constitution, then it's controversial. To back up a little bit, there are certain provisions in the Constitution that restrict who can run for office. And one of them is in the 14th Amendment, and it has to do with insurrection. And that's the one that has been it hasn't been used in a long, long time because we've never been in this situation before where a president has been indicted 91 times. Several of the indictments have to do with what happened on January 6, 2021. And so we're kind of in new territory, and that's why we don't have a process for doing that now. What
defines insurrection? What is insurrection?
Well, that's the key question. So that is why this bill would set it up so that the Supreme Court, the Hawaii Supreme Court, would have to make that decision.
Are you thinking of Donald Trump in this case?
Well, Donald Trump obviously is the one who got everybody thinking about this provision because it was a rather obscure provision up to this point. It was a post-Civil War provision that was trying to make it so that people like Jefferson Davis, who was president of the Confederacy, didn't get to run for office again in the new United States after having triggered this civil war that went on for years and years.
In terms of Donald Trump, how have your constituents responded?
I think most people are sympathetic in Hawaii to the idea that he should be taken off the ballot because of his actions leading up to January 6 and on January 6.
Now, many people presented testimony this last week, and by far the people who were against this outnumbered those who were for it.
That's right, and it's always, I mean, it's always a question of whether the people that show up at a hearing are actually representative of the people at large. And I think in this case they weren't, but it's true that overwhelmingly the people that came to testify were opposed.
But they might represent a minority here in the state of Hawaii, and that brings up the question, why the state of Hawaii? Why introduce this? Why here in Hawaii?
Well, the reason was because when we looked at, about a year ago, I think there started being challenges in other states to Trump's candidacy. And, I started asking the Office of Elections about it. And they said, well, we're not going to make that decision on our own. We want a court order, which is understandable. I don't blame them for that. So what this bill would do is set up a process so that the courts would decide that critical question of what insurrection means. Justice
Roberts said that this could be used by either side, that could be dubious territory if we go to a point in which one side is consistently accusing the other's candidate of being an insurrectionist, which we have no definition of in the absence of any criminal charges, certainly.
Well, there are criminal charges, of course, in Trump's case. He has been indicted for activities on January 6th.
Conviction, I should say.
But the 14th Amendment does not require a conviction. The bill would still be useful because there are other offices that come up where it could apply. For example, the guy who ran against Adrian Tam in the State House district in Waikiki, he was in the Capitol on January 6th. But if he wasn't convicted of a felony, he could come back and run again, say, for Congress. And having a process in place would still be useful.
The AP published a report showing that already across social media, some on the right have been saying, hey, this is what Hawaii is doing, and trying to rally support against it. Does this help Donald Trump?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that as often, every time that his name is brought up in the same sentence with insurrection and trying to overthrow a free and fair election, an election that, by the way, his own cybersecurity chief said was the safest, most secure election that we'd ever had in the United States, I don't see how that helps you politically. I know he's trying to. I know his base love it that he's been indicted 91 times, but the rest of us don't.
But again, it plays into the talking point that the Democrats are taking people's votes away. Are you taking people's ability to vote freely?
If you're not involved in an insurrection, this doesn't apply to you. If you are involved in an insurrection, it might apply to you.
What defines insurrection to you? What argument would you make that Donald Trump is an insurrectionist?
I would argue that he tried to stop the vote after he tried to stop the electoral college votes from being counted, and he tried to stay in office illegally, and he tried to do it with violence.
Can you tell us what you expect from this? I mean, I know you hear a lot of opposition. There are people who are upset.
I've been called, I wouldn't say that I've actually gotten a death threat, but I have had people tell me that they wish someone would kill me. So to me, that's not an argument. That's just being a bully, and there's been a lot of that in this case.
What do you think they're reacting to?
I don't know. I mean, I'm like I say, this is about the Constitution. If you believe in the Constitution, then you have to at least factor in that the 14th Amendment could apply in this situation.
Senator Karl Rhoads, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.